everyone, it's Seth Rudetsky, and I'm talking with Rabbi Sol Solomon on Dave's Gone By, coming to you from UNC Radio.
Oh, shalom, shalom, my friends, shalom, my enemies as well. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, the founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am delighted and thrilled to have someone on this program who has created a disaster. Now, wait, don't go running from your radios and from your computers. I mean, he created a Broadway show called Disaster. Not only that, you can hear him on the radio, on digital satellite radio, no less, on SiriusXM, talking about theater, interviewing theater people and playing show tunes. He also has books out, both for young adults and also his diary of working in the pit of various Broadway shows and working on television with people like Rosie O'Donnell. The man never stops, and if you can be persuaded to go to a horrible place called New Jersey, you can see Seth Rudetsky October 7th doing Broadway's best at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man that I am meeting for the first time, but our mutual friend Dave knows going way back. Shalom, Seth Rudetsky.
You sound like Professor Frink from The Simpsons.
Professor, no, he's a little brainy for me. I'm more, I don't have his IQ level.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're smart. I'm just saying your speaking voice is like Professor Frink.
Well, I don't even know how to take that. But how are you, Seth?
I'm good. Thank you, Rebs.
Rebs, I like that. Is your Hebrew name Shmuel, or was it actually Seth from the Bible, or Set?
Yisrael. So you were incorrect in every level.
How the hell did it start with Yisrael?
Why don't you, ask the person who was at my birth. I don't know. It was 30 years ago.
Okay, 30 years ago. Somebody forgot.
It's my musical theater age.
I didn't. You shave off years when you do that. I didn't realize. But we should mention. I guess I'll mention right away that you have known the producer of this program, Dave Lefkowitz, since was it junior high school on Long Island?
Since high school, and let me also say that he was older than I am. He was a senior when I was a freshman, and I skipped a grade, so that's at least a 5-year difference. I just want to clarify that.
Okay, well, he does remember you from that time. You were in the same hallways at some point in the same class. Did you ever take a class together, do you remember?
No, but I saw him star in Come Blow Your Horn when he was a senior, and I'd never seen him do a show before. I don't think anyone had a theater department. We're like, who the hell is he? And he was brilliant. He played the father in Come Blow Your Horn, and he was brilliant. We were all obsessed with him, and then he graduated suddenly.
Oh, well, that's very kind. I will relay your respects to him about the show. And also, you wouldn't have been in the same circle because he wouldn't have done musical theater. Were you doing musicals at Hewlett High School?
Yes, as a rabbi, I'm sure you'd know the show called Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, I've heard of it, yes.
I was cast as a rabbi when I was a freshman, so I was doing musicals at Hewlett High School for a little bit. Yes, it was. Were
you in the pit also for shows, or were you just trying to be on stage?
I don't think I was ever in the pit for any musicals. I played a lot of piano for like chorus and chorale, and I played tuba in band, and I played violin in orchestra.
Now, were you a good student otherwise, or was everything geared towards the theater?
No, everything was theater and music. I have ADD, so it's like of course I didn't know it then. I just thought I was a bad student, but I definitely had ADD, so I had terrible grades and. I mean, not terrible, but I didn't have good grades. I did well on my SATs, but I didn't have good grades. I got, amazing. I got, 100 in chorus and chorale, but, everything else, I got, an 82 or, an 81 or in the 70s.
Well, how do you go into theater, which demands extraordinary concentration for an hour or 2 or 3 at a time?
Because, I hear what you're saying. I'm very, well, first of all, people with ADD are very good at focusing when it's something they're interested in. They're just not good at focusing when they're not interested in, unfortunately. So, but I say during long rehearsals, I'm like, the annoying person in rehearsal that's distracting everybody and not concentrating. And all I'd say is that I'm really interested in theater, and I'm able to focus when I'm doing that or when I'm doing music. But I don't think I could have a regular job. Like when I worked on the Rosie O'Donnell show as a comedy writer, we were there for 8 hours a day, and it was really difficult for me to be in one place for long periods of time. That was very hard. Whereas when you're on Broadway, it's you're there for 2 hours. That's it.
Well, although if you're writing comedy, I assume they expect you to take breaks and do crazy, kooky things that are distracting, no? Or the writer's room is not like that?
No, well, first of all, it was the Rosie O'Donnell show, so it's like it was a talk show. So there was maybe 2 minutes of comedy we had to write, and the rest of the time we basically just sat around. So it wasn't like we couldn't goof off, but it just I felt like I was trapped there. Whereas before, all my Broadway work was like, play rehearsals for Grease for 2 hours, go over to Phantom of the Opera, play auditions. Like, that's very good for me. Like, when you're ADD, it's like you want to keep changing, like every hour, every 2 hours. Whereas in the Rosie O'Donnell show, I was there from like 7:30 in the morning till 5, and I grew to completely hate it. I hated being in one place. It was really, really difficult for me.
Now, a question about that, though. What is the funniest or the proudest bit that you ended up writing that you feel for the Rosie O'Donnell program?
I would say it wasn't quite for the program, but she hired me to do it. She hired me to write the opening number for the Tony Awards, 1998, and it was great because she wanted to write a song about wanting to be a diva, and she said, she wanted to feature three famous Broadway divas singing their signature songs. So she asked me who I thought they should be, and I was like, it has to be Patti LuPone, Betty Buckley, and Jennifer Holliday. So she got all three of them, and they all sang their signature songs, and she kind of came out in between each one. And I think my favorite lyric, it was the song Roxy. My favorite lyric was, I want to be a diva, I wish there was some way I could learn. I try to sing like Patti LuPone, but I sound like Rhoda Morgenstern. That's what that. I just love that I wrote his last name in.
Hey, not so bad. You make me sound like Professor Frink, so I'm, I'd rather sound like Rhoda, I think, perhaps.
I don't know, they're both kind of horrible.
Okay. No, because I also want to talk about your upbringing on Long Island, and you were miserable.
I was not a fan.
Why?
Why? Because, before the internet, there wasn't much arts really for me. I hated school. There wasn't community theater at all. There was just, whatever I could kind of conjure up in school to do the arts. It was all I was really interested in. I didn't feel I had a lot of outlets. I was gay, and like everyone, typical horrible Republican.
Wait. You're gay? Oh my God! I need better researchers.
Yeah, you gotta do your research. And, it was Long Island, and it was very prejudiced, and it was...
Wait, were you bullied? Were you, A, bullied because you're short and Jewish, or B, bullied because you were short and specifically gay?
Well, Jewish, no, because that whole school was 98% Jewish, so not at all. I mean, and I also wasn't short, but I was definitely overweight, and every gay kid is bullied. There's just no way you can be in a society and not be bullied for being gay, because it's still, basically, it's an anti-gay society, so yes.
And you knew by high school that you were... When did you realize, actually?
Oh, I probably knew ever since I was a toddler, like 5 years old or so, 6, 7.
So you just sort of... And was it easy, since it happened so early, was it easy to come to terms with yourself as opposed to the outside world? Or did that cause you problems?
I knew that it was wrong, quote unquote wrong, so I didn't want to be that way in a sense. So, I hear you saying, like, if society didn't dislike it, then I wouldn't have really cared. But because, like, I knew society didn't like it, I was like, I just wish I could be normal and fit in. But it wasn't like I really, it's weird, I know what you're asking. I didn't really care myself, and that's why when I got to, like, when I first did the show, I did this professional show, Oliver, when I was like 11, all these gay people there, like it was, when you're around people that accepted being gay, I wasn't in denial about it. I wasn't like, but I'm not. I was like, oh, good. And when I went to Oberlin when I was 17, everyone was gay, I was like, oh, great. It was just more like being surrounded by anti-gay people, you start to go, oh my God, I wish I weren't gay. But it wasn't like I was like, I always dreamed of being married with a child, and oh my God, if I'm gay, I can't have that. Like, that never crossed my mind. I just wanted to fit in.
Cool. I gotcha. Now, how do we get Seth Rudetsky from being just another musical, perhaps semi-prodigy at Oberlin, to being on Rosie O'Donnell, being in orchestra pits, being in at New York theater circles, at least quite famous?
I would say the only difference between me and other people is that I always had a variety of interests. So probably if it was someone else, they would have just graduated college and just focused on music, but I focused on a variety of things, which is kind of the way I've always been. So when I graduated college, I focused a lot on music, and I got into the Broadway orchestra scene. But while I was doing that, like at the very same time, I'd always been interested in acting and comedy. So like as soon as I kind of began being professional, there'd be various actors who come up to me and say, oh, can you do my act with me? And I kind of would wind up writing it with them and kind of playing a role in it. So I was always kind of performing comedy and stuff on the side. So I had this kind of dual career of doing sketch comedy and stand-up comedy and music, and they were both kind of rising at the same time. And there's this thing on Broadway called the Easter Bonnet Competition, which is like a big variety show for Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, and I had written a lot of this, like they put in these different comedy sketches, so I would write the sketch. I think I was doing Grease at the time, and I wrote the comedy sketch for Grease, and Rosie was in that show. So Rosie kind of saw the comedy that I could write, and then when she got her own TV show, she said, can you come on my TV show and start writing these kind of parody numbers for me? So it's because I'd always been pursuing both at the same time. So when she asked me to do that, then I began writing comedy for the Rosie O'Donnell show, and then I began to think I really want to start performing again, and I spoke to this agent, and, he saw me do my comedy show, and he said, this comedy show seems like it could be a play. Like, I know you're just doing sketches, because I play myself singing when I was 12 years old when I sounded really bad, and I showed pictures of me being fat, as part of the comedy act, and they said, maybe you should write a whole show about growing up on Long Island and what it was like for you. So I wrote this play for myself that played at the Actors Playhouse, and that's what got me an agent. So then I kind of started pursuing acting. I was writing a book. Anyway, the point is I pursue a lot of things at once, I guess is sort of the answer to the question.
Yeah, and that's actually even where we started, of saying all the things that you are even currently working on. We didn't mention you were on Broadway in a revival of The Ritz. That was your first Broadway debut on stage. And then, of course, you had the big musical disaster that started kind of off-Broadway, moved to off-Broadway, then came to Broadway a season ago. Did you, unfortunately, I did not get to see the show. It ran for a couple of months. Everybody hopes they're going to have a huge, huge hit. But did you kind of know that it would run for a bit? The theater geek people would go to see it, but you couldn't find a bigger audience?
Well, we knew it. We specifically we went into a theater that only had like a 4-month, 5-month window because Motown was coming in. So we kind of had an option. It's very hard to get a theater when you have a Broadway show. Like, we raised the money, but we were looking for a theater, and the producer, I wasn't the producer, but the producer said, we got a theater offer, but we're going to have to leave after a couple months because Motown has to come back. So,
and if only they'd known how long Motown, they might have given you more of a shot,
But, we really decided we really wanted to get the show on Broadway, get a cast album, get the show licensed so that we could do it in London and do it around the world. So I knew we had to close. So I guess we could have maybe opened this season and waited. I didn't want to just keep waiting. So I was very happy that we got it licensed, we got the album, and we're doing 2 performances in November in London, and then I'm hoping we open on the West End over the summer. So I guess I knew it is the answer to the question.
And the cast album is out on what label? How can people get it?
Cast album, you just look up Disaster, but it's out on Broadway Records. It just came out a week ago.
And it's got this really, really famous, almost everybody in there is a Broadway star.
Yeah, we got a great cast, really, really great cast.
Remind people.
What'd you say?
Remind people. Kevin Chamberlain and
it's Kevin Chamberlain from, Seussical and all those shows. It's Faith Prince, who won the Tony for playing Adelaide, and Guys and Dolls. It's Carrie Butler from Xanadu. It's Adam Pascal from Rent. Jennifer Samara, who actually got a Tony nomination for playing the part in Disaster. She played the nun with the gambling addiction. Roger Bart, who has the Tony Award. Rachel York. It was basically like, a big cast of stars, and then me.
Well, now, America sees you, Seth Rudetsky, on TV, maybe bantering with Rosie O'Donnell or at these Tony Award things, but New Yorkers might know you more for some of the interviews and the fun that you've had over the years at Don't Tell Mama, the cabaret club, doing a show called Seth's Broadway Chatterbox, which you had to give up just because you're so busy with other things.
Well, it kind of turned into my radio show. I was trying to do my SiriusXM show where I do these full-hour interviews and the Chatterbox at the same time. I was just like, it wound up being just the same show twice in the same week. So now I really just do it on SiriusXM. But it's these like full-hour interviews with Broadway stars, and then I wound up playing with them and stuff like that.
Well, what are some of either the best interviews that you've had or the best, funniest anecdotes that you've been told?
That's a good question. Priscilla Lopez. A lot of people that I grew up obsessed with got to come on my show. So Priscilla Lopez, who was Morales in a chorus line and sang What I Did for Love. She told me she was in a show called Her First Roman in the late 60s, and she had to wear all this body paint, and she couldn't get her wig to stay on because her hair was really, really short, so she couldn't get the wig cap on, so she stuffed underwear and stuff into her wig cap to make it more fluffy, to make the wig stay onto it. She told all the other chorus girls that. So show. She had her body painted doing this funeral processional, and the woman in front of her had her wig on, but she did Priscilla's trick, but it didn't quite work because there was this enormous white bra hanging from the back of her wig. So Priscilla could not believe that she was responsible for this mortifying white bra hanging off the woman, and she wanted to start laughing, but of course it was a funeral processional, so she couldn't. So Priscilla said she held it in, and of course, what did that cause? But she literally started peeing on stage.
No!
And she was wearing body paint, so it was dripping off her legs, and the stage was raked. So it was literally dripping into the orchestra. But that part was not fun.
Oh, it's fun to hear about.
Yeah, and speaking sort of along the same kind of orchestra pit, Andrea McCardle, who was Annie, we did Les Mis together. I was playing in the orchestra, and she was Fantine. And in Act 2 of Les Mis, Fantine comes back as a boy wearing these big pants, and she said they had these enormous pockets, so she was able to keep a quarter-pound bag of M&Ms in her pocket and eat them backstage. So she was eating like she usually did, and then it came the barricade death scene, and Andrea said she had friends in the audience and she wanted to show off and give a really dramatic death, and she used to be a gymnast. So she went to the top of the barricade when she got shot and kind of hooked her leg on top of the barricade and flipped herself backwards and laid there, but she forgot that she had the M&Ms in her pocket, so when she died, literally just a rainbow of M&Ms started flooding out of her pocket, down the barricade, and yet again into the orchestra pit. So it was better than the urine, but it was still completely inappropriate.
Well, at least they weren't peanut M&Ms. That would have been terrifying.
Actually caused an injury. You're correct.
Speaking of injuries, have you ever been in the pit when there was a calamity on stage?
Yeah. I mean, one, I remember doing the producers one Saturday, and Matthew, when you play in a show, it's one of the things where, you just get used to the sounds on stage, and maybe not taking in the dialogue, but you just get used to the rhythm, and I was in the orchestra pit, and it was this scene, and just something sounded really weird, and I put down my book, and I started listening, and anyway, it turns out this guy in the balcony had a heart attack. He wound up living, but it was very weird. We had to stop the show. They had to get carried out. And then I found out that that's very typical on Broadway on Saturday nights because a lot of people go out to eat before the show, and then they climb the stairs to the balcony, and it basically strains their heart, and they have a heart attack. So I guess that was a calamity. I mean, he did wind up living, thank God. And one time I was playing Seussical in the orchestra pit, and right above my keyboard, there was this, 2-pound water bug clinging to the top of the ceiling of the pit, and it was right above my piano, and it was a big dance number on stage, so everyone was stomping around on stage and shaking the stage, which is, of course, the ceiling of the pit, and I was wearing short sleeves, and I kept thinking, oh my God, it's going to land on my bare arm. A water bug is like a cockroach.
Yeah.
But I couldn't escape because I had to play. It was literally like torture, spending 5 minutes underneath a clinging giant cockroach. Oh, God, that was disgusting. So, yes, I've been there.
You've been? Oh, my God. Now, did either of these 3 stories wind up in the 2 books that you have written, your Broadway diaries?
Yeah, Broadway diaries are basically, if people follow me out there, I have a weekly column on Playbill.com. So, since 2007, I write a weekly column about, I'm always doing something with, I do a lot of concerts around the country with, like Audrey McDonald and
Patti
LuPone. So always kind of fun things happen to me. So every week I write about what happened to me. So since I started doing these columns and I have all this writing material, Dress Circle Publishing has been compiling them into my quote-unquote diaries. So I have 2 volumes out. So I'm sure, I can't remember if those stories happened in those volumes, but yes, I've certainly printed those stories somewhere.
And are there any other favorite, because the anecdotes are hilarious, of the ones that you've either seen?
I mean, just inappropriate stuff that happens on Broadway, like when I was working with Audrey McDonald in Ragtime. Spoiler alert, but she dies at the end of Act 1.
No.
I know, spoiler, she runs off stage, and then they put her into a coffin, they wheel her on stage for the whole end of Act 1, and they sing this very sad song while she's in the coffin. Well, it was the late 90s, and everyone was very immature. They all had beepers. And what they did was, before she got it in the coffin, they put 2 beepers in the coffin. She laid down, they wheeled her out, and then the understudies stood backstage and called her beepers. The whole end of Act 1. Her whole body was vibrating because the stupid beepers were beeping inside the coffin. Anyway, it's funny. Audrey told me that when she was doing Raisin in the Sun, the audience, completely just thought it was a movie. A lot of people had never been to a Broadway show before because it was with Sean Puffy Combs. And Audrey said at the very end of the show, everyone moves out of the apartment, and there's been this pathetic plant kind of withering on the windowsill. And Felicia Rashad is about to move out of the apartment, and right before she leaves, she turns back, she walks across the stage, she picks up the plant, and she takes it with her. So one night Audrey said, begin her amazing dramatic moment, and right when she turns, someone in the audience goes, "Don't forget your plant!" Thank you. I almost forgot it.
Well, black people at the movies, black people at the theater. We can.
I guess just say it all. Say whatever you feel. No fourth wall.
And so those are some Audra stories. Do you have Kelli O'Hara stories or Benanti stories? Do you have?
Oh yeah.
Len Carrier stories? What?
Kelli O'Hara was doing South Pacific, and she got into her little bikini to do gonna wash that man right out of my Wonderful Guys in her bikini.
Oh.
And she kept feeling like intense pain, but like every 10 seconds, like not constant, but like every time she kind of moved, crazy intense pain, but she had to keep singing the song. Turns out they altered her bikini, I think because she was pregnant, they had to let it out.
Oh.
But they kept all the pins in the bikini.
Oh!
So she literally did an entire number, which by the way, nothing tops Marin Mazzie. Marin Mazzie was doing Passion, and she began that show fully nude, sitting on top of Jerry Shea's back, and they would do the whole opening of Passion.
Right.
So she was, he was on the bed, and right before the curtain went up, she was totally nude, stripped down, sat down on his back, the curtain went up, and he forgot to tell her they had a bad back, and he had slathered his entire back with Ben Gay. She said she ran him out backstage singing, "Pussy on fire! Pussy on fire!" There you have it.
Oh, the glory, the nobility that is Broadway. Let me tell you. Oh,
Laura Benanti was going on for Maria for the first time in Sound of Music. She was the understudy, and she was only 18 years old, and she said the music began, and she literally, I just love what the audience doesn't know. She said she was about to run on stage. She literally flat out just threw up backstage, and 1 second later was like, "Oh, here's her." I just love the audience be like, "What a fresh-faced 18-year-old Maria." It's like she literally just vomited backstage. The stench. So basically, we've all been there and back.
And you have to tell one male story, because I know it's diva-oriented, it's Broadway, you're gay, etc. But any guy stories?
Okay. Let me think of Maggie's name me a star, and I'll try to think of.
I don't know, George C. Scott. He was hilarious.
He's a musical star.
Right. Let's say who's a big Norbert Leo Butz.
Okay, so Norbert Leo Butz. This is just depressing. This is just how the world works. Like, he literally got hired for Rent. They basically fired the understudy for Rent and hired him during a show. So as he was walking up to his dressing room, the understudy they fired was literally walking down the stairs.
Oh.
So that's depressing. But fun Norbert Leo Butz story. This is for you musical theater people out there, you'll appreciate this. He didn't really know a lot about auditioning when he moved to New York. Even though he was in Rent on Broadway, he was still very newcomer. So they asked him to come in for Sideshow. And the agent said, bring a pop song, but, just bring your book. Because, when you're in, if you don't know that, but your book, it has like an up-tempo, a pop song, a Sondheim song. They just were saying, bring a pop song, but just in case, bring your book, because they may want you to sing something else.
Smart.
So
Okay.
He's like, okay, I'll bring a pop song, I'll bring my book. So he goes there, and he didn't rehearse the pop song at all, and he forgot the lyrics, and then he tried it again, he just did a terrible job. So, but they wanted to see him, so they said, what else? They said, what else do you have? Do you have your book? And at that moment, he realized he was so inexperienced, he thought the agent was saying the audition's going to be really long and boring, so bring your book.
Oh, bring a book that you're reading.
Tom Wolfe's A Man in Full. So he was like, I don't have my book. Suffice it to say, and then years later, he was telling that story. He was starring as the MC in Cabaret, and he was telling that story, and one of the Cabaret dancers was like, "Oh my God, I was at that audition. We talked about that for years." So, no one knew who he was. They just thought he was that idiot that came in with A Man in Full.
Oh. Now, speaking...
the final story is the reason he's Norbert Leo Butz is because his father is Norbert Butz also. They both have the same name. And when he was 20 years old, Norbert's girlfriend wrote him this incredibly sex-filled letter, and his father was like, "What's this for me?" And he opened up the letter, and it was so horrifying that Norbert, the kid, said from now on, he's always going to be Norbert Leo Butz because he never wanted that to happen again.
Wow. And one day they'll frame that letter and put it in the Smithsonian.
Get back to me.
Maybe. So with all the incredible things that you're doing, is there something in the hopper? Are you working on another musical, or is it just enough that you're running from thing to thing and doing the SiriusXM, and you're playing concerts all over the country, or backing other performers major people all over the country?
I have the concert series, the Kimmel Center, and Fort Lauderdale, and I'm doing my own show, and ever since we did that, we performed at the Democratic National Convention. There's been a lot of, not fallout, but a lot of aftermath after doing the Orlando recording, and now we're getting an award. And anyways, there's a lot going on with the Orlando thing, and then I have my own show in Largo in Los Angeles, and I got that thing at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center.
And actually, when you do the song for the Orlando thing in front of an audience, there's a woman who shouts out, "Don't forget the plant!"
Don't forget the plant.
Gotta do that. Well, Seth, it has been delightful. I have one or two more questions if you have 1 or 2 more minutes. Do you?
Okay.
Okay, sure. All right. So I noticed somewhere that your mom is, well, you are a Jew, of course, and your mom is a Jewess.
Yeah.
But she became more Jewess-esque a little later in life. Is that true?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, what happened? I mean, she just decided to become Orthodox?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I was already an adult by then. Yeah, I don't know. She just got into it, I guess.
Now, do you even consider yourself culturally Jewish? Are you an atheist? Where are you at on the scale of Hebraicness?
Oh, I don't know. I feel it changes every day. But I definitely consider myself a Jew, but I don't know where I am. I feel it keeps changing.
Did you marry a nice Jewish boy?
No, he's not Jewish.
Oh my God! Oy, what a shanda! How about your daughter? Are you raising her? He came with the daughter, but is she being raised at least anything? Did she have a bat mitzvah?
No, she's dyslexic. It was way too difficult to do.
So she'd have a tab hadn't-sieve or something like that.
It was just to try to. Dyslexics have a real problem learning another language. It was just way too difficult. She started Hebrew class, but it was just too hard.
That's a shame, because it's right to left anyway.
It's not that they read backwards. It's just it doesn't. They just see letters differently. It becomes very complicated, symbols and stuff. So it was too difficult to look at. Anyway, it's too difficult to read.
What is your favorite Broadway show?
I don't think I have a literal favorite, but I mean, there's a lot of shows I love. Like I think West Side Story is a perfect show. I think Gypsy is a perfect show. I think A Chorus Line is perfect. I don't think Evita is perfect, but I'm like completely obsessed with the original cast recording. Dreamgirls, in terms of modern stuff, I saw In the Heights 10 times. I'm completely obsessed with it.
Are you obsessed with Hamilton like everybody else is?
I haven't had time really to get into it because it was right around the time that we were going to Broadway. So like I haven't been able to. In the Heights, I'd seen the very first workshop of it because my friend was in it. So I feel like I kind of like saw that show from the very beginning, from workshop to off Broadway to Broadway. Whereas Hamilton, I just haven't been able to because of my show. So eventually, I'm sure I'll become obsessed.
And speaking of Broadway and Broadway singing and stuff like that, one of the things that you're doing in videos and elsewhere is deconstructing Broadway performance and singing performance. Well, give an example. What does that even mean?
I used to be part of my comedy act, and then Rosie O'Donnell saw me do some of it, and she said you should do a whole show like that. It's basically kind of, how do I say it? It's kind of like America's Funniest Home Video, where I basically, how do I describe it? Like I hear certain things, and I sort of analyze it. I'm making it sound so unfunny and interesting. I don't know how to say it. I mean, I can give you a very specific example, unless you could hear it, you can't really appreciate it, but Barbra Streisand, like, for some reason changes consonants when she sings. And she does this one thing where she's supposed to go, a silver-plated wah-wah mute, like a mute in a trumpet. Mm-hmm. Not only changes the T to an L, she overemphasizes it, and it's one of those things where I'm like, why has no one ever budgeted for it? But she goes, a silver-plated wah-wah mule, instead of a T. And I did it. I did the show at the same place I'm going back to in Los Angeles at Largo, and her friends came to come see it, and then the next thing I know, like a month later, Barbra Streisand was there, James Brolin. They both came to see me deconstruct her. So I think she liked it. Is the answer to the story, and hopefully her friends weren't offended by it.
Now, if she didn't like it, you would be upside down in the East River.
No, I know. Yeah, no. She came backstage and she was like, "Why did I do that?" She goes, "Maybe they took another consonant from a different word I did, and then they kind of edited it together." And I was like, "Barbara, I just think you just did it because you're." I don't know. Like, she just makes her own. Anyway, she was very nice after the show.
Well, it has been very nice talking to Seth Rudetsky. And by the way, you can read about these deconstructions. You can also buy the books that he has written, both for young adults and also... what were the names of the young adult books, by the way?
First one is My Awesome Awful Popularity Plan. Second one is The Rise and Fall of a Theater Geek.
And those are both from Random House Books. Dress Circle Publishing is the place where you can get his 2 big Broadway diaries. You can also hear him, is it pretty much every weekday on SiriusXM? Thank you, darling. And, of course, you can go to New Jersey Performing Arts Center on October 7th to hear him do Broadway's. But just remind us what you're going to be, some of the things you're going to be doing there.
Evening of comedy music with three of my friends from Disasters, me, Kerry Butler, Kevin Chamberlain, and Roger Bart, which is doing an evening of Broadway comedy songs. We just wanted to find the funniest materials. We're doing stuff from the producers and Hairspray, and they're playing our songs, just all the old Broadway comedy hits.
Well, you have been a comedy hit with us here in the neighborhood. I wish you much more success, much more music, much more delight in what you do for love. And we love having you here. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. All right, bye.
Shalom.